Single dad Arav had lived the past 4 years on autopilot. Wake up at 5:30, make breakfast for his 7-year-old daughter Mahek, drop her at school, then stop at the same roadside tea stall before heading to work. And every morning, without fail, he would see the same woman. She always arrived just before him, always stood at the far end of the stall, and always looked lost, as if her body was present but her mind wandered far beyond the noise of honking buses and rushing crowds. She wore simple clothes, kept her hair tied loosely, and never spoke to anyone. But every morning, she struggled with the same thing, opening the old rusted flask she carried. The lid jammed, and no matter how hard she tried, it wouldn't budge. The first time he saw her struggling, Arav hesitated. He wasn't used to talking to strangers anymore. Life had made him quieter, colder. But something about the woman's expression nudged him. So he stepped forward, gently took the flask, twisted the lid open, and returned it. She had looked surprised, then smiled faintly, a soft smile that lasted only a second. The next day she struggled again, and again he helped. And again, and again. For months, it became an unspoken ritual. She pretended to try, he pretended not to watch, and then he stepped in to help. They never exchanged names, never exchanged stories. Just a nod, a flask, and a moment that felt strangely grounding. She fascinated him, not because of her looks, but because of the heaviness she carried. He recognized it. It mirrored his own. One foggy winter morning, Arav noticed she wasn't at the stall. He felt an unexpected pinch in his chest. He reminded himself she was a stranger. Still, he kept looking for her all week. On the 6th day, she appeared again, but this time she looked even more pale, more tired, as if she hadn't slept in days. Her hands trembled slightly when she held out the flask. Arav opened it quietly, but his brows furrowed. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She didn't answer. Her eyes welled up, but she forced a smile, took the flask, and walked away before he could say anything more. Days passed, and he continued helping her in the same silent routine. But he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Then, one morning, everything changed. Arav opened the flask and handed it to her. She took it, but instead of stepping back, she leaned in closer, too close, as if gathering the courage to say something she'd been holding inside for months. "Aap, mujhe yaad nahi kart, right?" she whispered. He blinked, confused. "Kya?" Her lips trembled. "You don't remember me." A cold wave ran down his spine. Remember her? How? He searched her face frantically, trying to place her features, her eyes, anything. She noticed his confusion and let out a shaky breath. "I knew it," she murmured, voice cracking. "It's okay. I didn't expect you to remember after everything." Arav felt something tighten in his chest. He whispered, "Please, tell me." She looked down at her hands. 4 years ago. The hospital. ICU. He froze. His mind raced back to the worst night of his life, the night his wife died giving birth to Mahek. He remembered the chaos, the nurses rushing, the doctor's apologies. He remembered holding his newborn daughter while his world shattered. But what did that have to do with this woman? The woman lifted her eyes, tears finally spilling. "I was the nurse," she said. "The one who stayed with your daughter before you came. The one who held her when she wouldn't stop crying. The one who tried so hard, to save your wife." Arav's breath stopped. His heart hammered painfully. He looked at her properly now, really looked. And slowly, the edges of a memory returned, her face partly covered by a surgical mask, her eyes determined but crying when the doctor pronounced his wife dead, her hands trembling as she placed baby Mahek gently into his arms. "You?" His voice broke. She nodded. "I quit the hospital after that night. I couldn't handle losing another patient. I couldn't handle watching families break." Tears spilled freely down her cheeks. "I saw your face, your pain, every night for years. And then suddenly one morning, I saw you here. Alive, trying, taking care of your daughter alone. And I thought, maybe God was giving me a chance to see something heal." Arav felt his throat close up. His eyes stung. All those silent mornings suddenly made sense. Why she looked at Mahek with such softness when she passed by, why her hands shook, why her eyes carried so much guilt. "You helped me," she whispered. "Every day, without knowing. I couldn't save your wife, but you still helped me. Arav couldn't speak. Words felt too small for what surged through him. Finally, he stepped closer, his voice barely a breath. You saved my daughter, he said. I don't care what you think you failed at. You were there when I couldn't be. You held her. You cared. You saved the only part of my life I had left. She covered her mouth, sobbing silently. And for the first time in 4 years, Arav reached out carefully and rested a hand on someone else's shoulder, not out of habit, but out of empathy, understanding, and a shared grief only they understood. The mourning crowd moved around them, unaware of the storm of old heartbreak and unexpected healing unfolding beside a tiny tea stall. After a long moment, she wiped her tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. Arav shook his head. Don't be. Some people enter our lives to break us, but some come to help us stand again. Maybe we're both that for each other. She looked at him, eyes soft, no longer burdened with guilt, just relief. For the first time, she smiled without it fading instantly. My name is Ria, she said quietly. Arav nodded, a gentle warmth blooming in his chest. And I'm Arav. Their story hadn't begun that morning. It had begun years ago, in a cold hospital room filled with grief. But that morning, when she whispered, "You don't remember me," was the moment their healing finally began.